Buenos dias.
Hello.
So you catch us here now, not in Nepal, nor in Mardi Himal, nor on any trek. We are currently on an overnight sleeper train headed to Agra in India, but we thought we'll use this time effectively and answer some of the questions that we had about trekking in Nepal, specifically Mardi Himal, in the hopes that this perhaps helps you if you're thinking of doing one yourself. So the first question that we had, or specifically me, was, is it necessary to have a sleeping bag? You see people telling you it's absolutely necessary, it's freezing cold. But of course, we're very minimalist. We don't travel with much. We travel with small bags, not many items, and to add a sleeping bag is extra cost and extra weight. So we were really unsure as to whether it was necessary, but we were also very conscious that if we don't bring one and we need it, we might be in big trouble. So do you think we found that we needed one?
So in our case, personally, we didn't need it because at the time that we went to do the trek, it was at the beginning of November and the weather was still okay. So you don't really need it at that time, but it's totally up to you on how you feel and what you want to pack.
Yeah, like when we went, sorry, we got a few judders from the train. Yeah, like when we went, it was, transpired that we didn't need it. We didn't buy one, fortunately, but we didn't need it. Plenty of blankets in the tea houses, and we actually got hot, like in a few of them. During the night, we were like, we need to take some extra clothes off. So, yeah, it depends when you go. If you go more in the heart of winter, like December, January, February, you may need one. But for us in November, absolutely not necessary.
Yeah, there is also some people who like carrying some sleeping bags because they are very clean, and when you go to the tea houses, they don't change the sheets. So it's up to you, but we didn't need it and we didn't feel gross either when we were in the tea houses. So it's totally up to you. And
I would say on that point, like if your concern is the cleanliness, which is a genuine concern, like of course you're up in the mountains, they don't have washing machines. So if cleanliness is an issue for you, I would recommend buying a sleeping bag liner. So it's just a thin piece of material which is designed to go inside your sleeping bag to basically keep it clean, but you can use that on its own. So when you go to the tea house, you can climb in your sleeping bag liner, you're separated from the covers, from the bed, and yeah, that will probably feel a little bit nicer. But for the warmth, the sleeping bag is only necessary at certain times.
second question.
Trekking boots. Now again, this is very important, and there's a wide range of opinions depending on who you ask. For me, I was very clear before we went to Nepal that I don't want them. I didn't want big heavy boots because the culture that we live in, this one bag style of traveling, I didn't want to buy something and then have to take that with me to Thailand, or worst case, just leave it behind. So for me, I bought running trekking shoes. So what do they call them? Trail runners, sorry. So I got these. So these are Nikes, these are Pegasus, but you see on the bottom, they've got like a really good grip. So these are the best of both. You get the trainers, you can go running in them, but they give you a really good grip for walking. And for me, I personally found that I didn't need boots. These were excellent. As long as you've got a good pair of socks, these are fantastic. Boots, I would say maybe better to have them if you're prone to rolling your ankle. Maybe you've had injuries in the past, or maybe if you're an older person, they do provide good stability. But for me, I prefer to just be light. And again, the culture of the traveling that we're doing, where we're going to different countries and we're trying not to accrue and buy unnecessary things. For me, these were incredible. These have been probably one of my best buys, total. Not just trekking, but total. What did you think?
So for me personally, I also had my normal trainers. I was perfectly fine. They were not uncomfortable. They didn't hurt me at all. So for me, it was not necessary. And as Wayne said, I think that if you are not a pro trekker and you are not going to do many trekkings and you are going to have a short trek as we did, that it was only 6 days, you probably won't need it. But as I said before, it's up to you and your needs.
Yeah, I will caveat the information I've just given in terms of them not being necessary with, similar to the sleeping bag question, time of year. If you're going when there's snow, that might change the dynamic. If you're going peak season, kind of November, October, when it's warmer weather, that you'll be fine. But if you're going when there's snow, maybe reconsider the points I've just made there. Third question is how much money. This is an important one because if you've never done a trek and maybe you don't know, you're in the mountains. There are no ATMs, so the amount of money you take with you is the only money you're going to take with you. You have no other opportunity to withdraw cash, so you need to take enough to cover your basic needs. That means covering the cost of the tea house, covering the cost of your food and drink, and when you're on the way and you have some breaks and some stops, any snacks maybe you want to get. So it's very important to take out the appropriate money, and I would say if anything, take out more than you think you need. I think we personally found when we were trekking that we didn't actually spend any more money than what we would spend in the normal day-to-day in Pokhara or Kathmandu or anything like that. So I think for us, we're not budgeters, we don't budget, we're not very tight or controlling with money, but we're frugal, you know, we're careful, I would say. You know, we don't go and blow money on big things, we don't spend unnecessarily. But on average, we probably spend 30 to 40 pounds per day. I'll put the conversion to dollars on the bottom. And I found that we spent kind of in line with that whilst we were trekking. So depending on how you travel and what kind of money you would spend in the city, perhaps translate that into the trek. But typically, yeah, depending on which trek you do, some of the lodgings, the tea houses, don't charge you. They'll just charge you for your food. So again, just withdraw the amount of money that you would typically spend in a day, multiply that by however many days you're going to do on the trek, and then add some more just for insurance, because when you finish the trek, maybe you might not want to walk down, maybe you want to take a helicopter if you're fortunate enough to afford that, maybe you want to take a jeep from one of the villages halfway. So just factor these things in and budget accordingly. There's no right or wrong answer with it. That's just what we found for us, didn't we?
Yeah, we thought that our trek was about being a little bit expensive than we expected.
Yeah.
But we ended up finishing the trek with left money. So it was quite cheap. It was, as he said, like basically a normal life in the city or anywhere that we were. It was basically the same budget.
Yeah, you can save some money on the way by buying your snacks beforehand, which is, to be honest with you, a good piece of advice anyway. You don't want to get caught, and it's just nice to have a chocolate bar, you know, when you've burnt a lot of calories. But if you've got some snacks already in your bag, they're going to be much cheaper to buy in the city than they will be up in the mountains. So yeah, we did that. That saves a bit of money, but yeah, typically 30 to 40 pounds a day maximum, really. The next question is the water situation. Should we have a water bottle? Do we need to take purification tablets? Will we be getting water directly from natural sources like the rivers or anything like that? These were all kind of a little bit unclear to us, and also the cost of the water. We heard various things about the water being very, very expensive, being unsafe to drink, all these different things. It was really unclear. We were feeling very confused by it. So what did we buy?
So we bought a package of purification tablets. Normally you have to use 1 tablet per liter, and then wait around 25 minutes until it kind of works. And that's all what we did. We filled the bottle of water. It was a plastic bottle. We didn't get anything like professional to take with us. So I think that it depends. If you are going to do regular treks, we probably suggest you to get like a good bottle of water.
I would even counter that. Like, one of the regrets for me from traveling here is not buying a proper water bottle back in our home country. You can buy them when you're in Nepal, but personally I don't trust the manufacturer of them. And what I mean by that is you're using a plastic bottle, and so if you don't have a good quality one, the chemicals in that plastic can leach into the water or the drink, especially if you're heating the drinks. So I personally didn't trust to buy one. In this case, we did what is the next best, but really not good, was to just use a normal water bottle like the ones that you get here.
And we
And-
fill this up in all the tea houses.
Yeah, so we didn't take any water from rivers or anything like that. The opportunity, to be honest with you, on Mardi Himal didn't arise. Maybe you would on other treks, but all of the tea houses sell water. They boil it so that it's clean. Some places will have a purification system as well, but as long as it's boiled, and then yeah, put those purification tablets, 1,000,000% buy those at the very, very minimum. But yeah, if you can, buy a proper water bottle and buy one with a filter system. I would have liked to have done that. But yeah, cost of the water varies again depending on which tea house and which trek you're in. We were generally finding that it was around 200 per litre.
Yeah, 150, 200 per liter.
Rupees, that is.
As higher you get, the expensier the things become.
Yeah, but it's affordable. It's, you know, it's more expensive than buying a bottle in the shop, but it's not any crazy prices.
Right, okay, so let's move to the next one.
Next one was clothing. Again, it's similar to the sleeping bag and the trekking boots question. What's the climate going to be like? Are we going to be hot? Are we going to be cold? Is it going to be raining? And I think we found in the end, like, we just took the stuff we had. I did buy a few bits of specialist stuff before we left England. So I bought some merino wool t-shirts. Basically, that just means that the fabric doesn't absorb the bacteria, it doesn't breed and doesn't smell. That was a fantastic buy, and I really, really do put my suggestion and recommendations on that. At least buy one or two, because what we found in the end was it was that cold that we just didn't change our clothes. We put our layers on and off we went. You're gonna get dirty. It's inevitable.
And you can't take a shower because the shower is freezing cold.
You can if you want, don't get me wrong, if you're Wim Hof and you want to do it. Some places have a gas shower as well, so you can get a shower, but we just opted to kind of just accept being dirty. And so we kept in the same clothes. So any clothes will do, they really will. Just pick something that's comfortable, is light, and again, merino wool is fantastic. I also suggest bringing some long sleeve things, because if you're like me and you're more fair, the sun is intense. As you go in the higher altitudes, it's easy to get burned. So definitely bring something with a long sleeve on it. And I would say, number one, my main thing with clothing, two things I would say. For me, the most important item of clothing was socks. Get a good pair of socks, get 2 or 3. Get one for the tea house that you're comfortable, that you can sit around in and go to bed in, and 2 really good pairs of socks for walking in. That is the most important thing. The second thing that I would say, which I definitely got wrong on this trek, was not the type of clothing, but the amount.
Yeah, we took too many clothes with us.
Pack light. Make your bag as light as possible, because you'll bring too many things, you won't use it exactly like we did, and you'll just end up in pain from carrying too much stuff. So pack light, that's all I would say.
Yeah. Also, a hat is super important.
Yeah.
It will keep your head warm during the nights.
And gloves.
And gloves.
Yeah.
That's the 3 main things that we got for this trek.
Yeah, hopefully that covers the clothing aspect, but it's a broad topic, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments. So the next kind of question we had in our mind was sleeping arrangements. You know, what are tea houses like? Will we find a room? Will we be sharing a room? Do we need to arrive by a certain time? All these different things. I think the biggest concern for us was, will we get a room? Because we'd been hearing stories that people had arrived a bit later on in the day and they were really struggling to find somewhere to sleep. This was a big concern because, of course, you're on a mountain. You know, you can't just go camping. I think the reality that we found in the end, though, was nothing like the stories we'd heard. I will premise it with us being on Mardi Himal was a quieter trek. Maybe Everest Base Camp, maybe others are different. So do bear in mind any information that we give is based on our experience, which is not of every trek. But I think in the end, everything was good, wasn't it?
Everything was fine. We never have any problems finding a room. There were plenty of tea houses. Yeah, we never struggled for anything, and they are very affordable as well. So
yeah, like
it was not an issue for us.
No, like we typically start our day a little bit later. We're not one of these couples that wake up at 5 a.m. and go. On the treks, you know, we were waking up in our own time, leaving in our own time, and arriving. And every time we did not struggle. We had no problem whatsoever. We always got a room. It was always easy to find. The tea houses were comfortable. The food was good, although a little bit repetitive by the time, you know, you're finishing the trek. First thing we did when we got back to Pokhara was like find somewhere that sells pasta and pizza. But yeah, the food is good. It's good quality. It's tasty. The sleeping arrangements are fine, just as you expect. I'd expect. You know, if you're on the side of a mountain, it's basic, but you've got blankets. You've got somewhere to sleep. It's comfortable enough. It's warm enough. The main thing that we found, which made it a little bit uncomfortable, made you kind of be questioning your environment, was an issue with rodents. Now, don't get me wrong, we didn't have a bad experience, but if you've not seen one of the previous videos we posted, we were in our room and during the night I was hearing scratching and I was hearing animals running around, and I kind of knew what it was. I daren't turn the light on. I didn't want to be faced with it. There was nothing I could do. We went to the next camp, the next tea house the following day, and we had a big gap at the bottom of the door. Now, thinking ahead based on the experience we'd had the night before, we sandwiched shoes and all kinds of stuff at the bottom so nothing could get in. That ended up being the best thing that we could have done, because I was talking to a lad in the tea house that night, telling him this experience with the mice in the room, and he was like, oh God, I hope that doesn't happen to me. We saw him in the morning, the following morning, and he said, oh my God, I can't believe you told me that story. You'll never guess what happened. And he said that he woke up during the night and he had a mouse on his bed staring at him right in the eyes, and he thought, right, just go back to sleep. And he woke up again, obviously being conscious of it, and he had mice all over his bed. So I don't know what I would have done in that situation. I think I would have freaked, but that was the only thing. So if you've got any gaps in your door, fill it. But yeah, everything was good with the tea houses. Yeah.
And the food is delicious, and the good thing with the food also is that, for example, if you get a dal bhat, and that's the typical Nepalese food, you get refill it as many times as you want, so you won't ever be hungry or anything. So it's really great.
Yeah, the tea houses I've got no problems with. The wash facilities were fine. Again, like we mentioned in a previous point, you might be stuck either with no shower or a cold shower, but just rough it out. It's only a few days. But yeah, all good with the tea houses. What was the next point? Power and the charging situation. Now, this will not apply to many people. Most people are going on the trek to be away from the gadgets and the technology. Fully understand that. But for us, as people who make videos, you may be the same, or perhaps you're taking a camera with you, or maybe you just want to keep charge on your phone so you can keep in touch with people. So it was a concern for us, and what we found was that the lower elevations, they have power, or at least solar power, and it's free. But as you go higher up, the opportunity to charge your things either becomes non-existent because they don't have power, or it becomes something that you'll need to pay for. And so luckily for us, our batteries lasted. I used my laptop. I wouldn't take that again, but I did. I took my laptop and I used that as a virtual power bank. And I also took plenty of batteries for the cameras. So that in itself was fine, but if I was doing a longer trek, maybe if we were not doing 5 or 6 days, but doing 15 or 16 days, it might have been a problem. So I would recommend, if you need power, to bring a power bank. Bring plenty of batteries, because the cold really drains the power. The batteries will discharge much quicker than normal when it's cold. So sleep with the batteries next to your body, inside your clothes, inside your sleeping bag if you're bringing one. Keep the batteries warm. But yeah, the power situation, it really depends. It's hit and miss, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because yeah, you get, as you say, like in the lower ones, you can find some plugs in your room, but as higher you got, you won't find it. You only have a light. They basically will illuminate your room, but no plugs or anything. So make sure that you carry with you a complementary.
And kind of on that same point, the Wi-Fi is the same. If you have a SIM card in your phone, depending on which network it is, you may get a signal in certain villages, because of course they need to communicate down with the lower levels to order products, you know, maybe there's an emergency, things like that. But tea houses offering you Wi-Fi, take that with a pinch of salt. Typically what that means is just tether into their phone. So if you desperately need Wi-Fi, just get a SIM card. The next point was altitude, and will we have any problem? What will it feel like? Will we have any effects, particularly negative ones? Of course, altitude is not something to play around with. People die from altitude, people get very ill, and so we were a little bit nervous, having never been at a high altitude before. Mardi Himal, I think the peak of our trek was around 4,300 meters, so we were in that zone of danger. So I think anytime you go above 3,800 meters, you've got to be wary. Of course, if you go into the extreme altitudes, you know, like the pass on the Annapurna circuit is over 5,000 meters, same as Everest Base Camp. You're getting into the big boy zone there. For us, it was kind of in that area where we thought we would be okay, and we were. We were fine, weren't we?
We didn't have any problem. Like the altitude for us, it was not an issue.
Yeah.
But you can feel like, for example, your patterns changing. Like you feel like maybe it's more difficult to sleep.
Yeah.
Or you feel a little bit like it's a little bit harder to breathe. But no secondary effects. We didn't have any trouble. We didn't find anybody having any trouble. But we heard so many histories of people having issues with altitude.
The thing with altitude sickness is it doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone, and it can be very random. So you can be extremely fit. Maybe you've even been to high altitude before, and it can just hit you when it's not expected. So don't take this point as altitude on this trek is not an issue. It's just simply that we didn't feel the effects. And like Xiomara says, when we mean effects, we mean just negative, like headaches, things like that. What we did feel though was a shortness of breath. It was much harder to physically exert yourself, and yeah, the sleeping thing was definitely the biggest one for me. Like it played with our sleeping. Even though you arrive at the tea houses completely exhausted, you've burnt an enormous amount of calories. You know, you should be tired, and you are. It's kind of hard to get into a really deep sleep. So yeah, there's no right or wrong answer with that. Just be prepared, drink lots of water, take it slow, particularly as you get into the higher elevations, and also take some Diamox, the altitude sickness tablets. Also, educate yourself on the symptoms of altitude sickness. I think that one is key. You know, particularly me, I'm very quick to dismiss feelings in my body. You know, I'll say it will pass, and it always does. But if you're one of these people like that, be very clear on what it feels like when you have a problem with altitude. You know, at least then you can be conscious of the symptoms and know that there's a problem, and know what to do afterwards. Either you need to take your Diamox, you need to have a rest, you need to drink more water, or in the worst case, maybe you just need to go back down. So I think that one, the last one, is probably key. Just be clear on what the problems are with it.
Yeah, listen to your body, and then if you feel something is not going right, just make sure that you put attention to that and take some action, because yeah, people can get very, very ill.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Now the next point was our bags, and this is kind of like a broad topic here. So bear in mind, we purchased bags that were specific for general travel. We're going to be going to Nepal, to India, to Thailand, to Europe. We wanted a bag that would kind of fit into all of those environments. So it wasn't a hiking bag, it wasn't a trekking bag, nor was it a hold-all. It kind of had to do a bit of everything. And so that meant that when we were doing the trek, we might have some shortcomings compared to people who bought a designated bag for that. And I think in the end we found no problems, did we?
Yeah, there was no problems. With my bag, I didn't have any problem. I think that you didn't either.
No, my bag is certainly not made for that. My bag is a city travel bag. It's meant to look nice, lots of little compartments, but it's not well strapped for comfort. And so there were moments where it was uncomfortable, but there was one simple conclusion to that. It was not the bag, it was how much I packed in the bag.
Yeah.
So it kind of falls in the line with the point earlier on, doesn't it? It was pack light. Do not take too much stuff. You will not need it. Pack the basics, a coat, whatever, but whatever you've got in your bag, cut it in half. Keep it light. That is the key. Not the bag itself, it's how much is in the bag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in the end we were totally good in that situation.
Yeah.
One point though that I would recommend is to have a bag with waist straps here. My bag doesn't come with them automatically, but it does have the little clips where you can add them on. And I bought them the day before we left for traveling, and it was, at least for the trek, one of the best things I bought, because they really do take the weight off your shoulder area and help to kind of distribute the weight a little bit more. So in terms of a bag, the brand, the value, the cost of the bag, how many pockets it's got, whether it's a top loader or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just buy one that's comfortable for you and don't fill it out with too many things.
And that's it. Yeah, no. That's all what I have to say about the bag.
Okay. So the next point was, well, Xiomara can answer this one a little bit better. It was a girl's question, and it relates to your period, how you would manage that, what the facilities would be in terms of. This is not a question for me.
Well, in terms of the period situations, I think that if you are close to your time, make sure that you pack everything with you, because I don't think that you can find those kind of things in the tea houses. In terms of the hygiene, well, the bathrooms are not the more comfortable thing, and there is like a general bathroom for everyone, for males and for females. So yeah, like you can change yourself, but make sure that you bring some toilet paper with you, because you won't find toilet paper in the tea houses. Yeah, you can sort yourself out basically, but it's not the more comfortable situations if you are in those days when you are doing the trek.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a girl, but perhaps it might be a good idea, if it's possible, to kind of time your trek around it. But one thing maybe that might be useful if you're doing it is to bring some hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the cleanliness situation is perhaps not the best for that.
Yeah, hand sanitizer and plenty of pads, tampons, or whatever you use as a.
And fortunately for Xiomara, there were no wild animals that could smell blood. So there was no bears, there were no leopards hunting her, so don't worry about those kind of aspects either. Now, the next point was the path, El Camino. What we mean by that is it easy to follow? You know, do you need a map? Do you need to download some things on your phone? Will you get lost? Because we heard so many stories on Mardi Himal about people losing the path, people getting lost and never getting found. There are people missing on that trek that have never been found. So we were quite concerned with this. You know, we're outdoors in the sense that we enjoy it, but we're not trained outdoors people. We don't have a compass, you know, we're none of this. We're simple folk who like traveling. We had a few confusing moments on the trek, didn't we? Where the path would kind of fork out and you're like, do you go left or do you go right? But from our point, we found that generally they lead to the same point, don't they?
Yeah, normally, yeah, they lead to the same point. Also, like the trail was very well signalized.
Yeah, marked, signposted.
Yeah, like you have like ways to go. Also, always try to go into the trek that everyone else goes, because some people try to get like shortcuts, and that's when they get lost. In our case, it almost happened when we reached the summit. There were a shorter path to go down to the last village. When we spoke with the people in the tea houses, they say don't do it because even locals get lost. So you just make sure that you go over the path. It is.
Yeah, I think the point you just made there was a good one. Was take advice from local people. You know, if you see a path on a map, or you see one even signposted like the one that we saw, just ask a local or ask a guide. You know, who's perhaps with someone else, and yeah, they'll let you know. But yeah, just be careful. And on the point of the paths and getting lost, on Mardi Himal we found the paths to be very good. They were very clean. They were well worn, so you could see where you were going. As you do get into higher altitudes, there are a few sketchy places where you can perhaps roll an ankle quite easily. And to be frank, you are on a mountain. So as well trodden as these paths are, there are places where you can easily slip. You can slip and you can take a tumble down the side of the mountain and you'll never be seen again, as has been the case for some people. So this would apply both to Mardi Himal and any trek that you do. Be very careful, very, very, very careful. Do not lose your concentration when you're in those moments. You need to be very much focused on where you're walking, where you're stepping. If you're a person who struggles with your balance, maybe an older person, get sticks. We didn't take them, we didn't need them. But yes, the danger is real. Trekking is a wonderful experience, but it's not without risks. So there are elements and parts of the track where you can have an accident. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting lost, it's
also like you are going to find animals on the way. You are going to find cows and,
like buffaloes.
and buffaloes. So don't panic. Just wait until the animals move through your way, and make sure that you don't wear too bright colors because we were advised that they can attack you when you are wearing like bright things.
It's like the matadors in Spain, you know, when they have the red blanket, it kind of enrages the bull. Yeah, we got told that, and judging by the hat, didn't heed that advice. We had no trouble, don't be wrong, but there were a few instances where it was getting late in the day. We're trying to get to our next tea house and we found the path actually blocked by some buffalo. And in one instance, there was kind of like a Mexican standoff. We were waiting for the buffalo, they were staring at us, and it was, are they going to charge? Are they going to move? We know that they're used to human contact because they're owned by people, they have bells on them. But they're living out in the wilderness, and so they still have natural wild instincts. In the end, the buffalo moved on. Just be cautious, don't get too close to them, and certainly don't walk behind them where they can kick you. Just keep your distance, you know, common sense.
And then
the next point is it going to be busy with people? I think this is a question that anyone on any trek would have. You're going out into the wilderness because you want peace, quiet, maybe a level of solitude at least. And you know, we heard with Mardi Himal that it's a much quieter trek, much more unknown. It's not an unknown trek, but it's much less popular than your Annapurna circuit, than your Everest Base Camp, Langtang, things like that. I think, what did you find? Like
for example, in our case, we didn't find many people in this trek. You found people like here and there, but it was not like constant people around you all the time. We have long periods of time without finding anybody, like 2 or 3 hours without finding anybody, and maybe just suddenly we found a couple walking. So this trek, it was very quiet in our case, maybe because of the time of the year, or maybe because it's not very popular, but for us there was a very quiet and enjoyable trek to do.
I will caveat that with one point, which was we were just lucky with our timing. And what I mean by that is just the week before, apparently it was incredibly busy. And the reason is this trek is more popular with Nepalis. So people from Nepal were coming from all over to do this trek because it was the holidays. And so people had time off school, time off work, and they were coming to enjoy the wilderness with their friends. And so it was very, very, very busy the week before we did it. When we did it, it was quiet. So I would just say, as with any trek, just do just a quick bit of research on the time, make sure there's no local holidays. Of course, there's a peak season with every trek, but we went, I think, 3rd of November, something like that, and it was quiet.
Yeah, it was great. It was really good, and that was the peak season, so we were lucky.
Yeah.
Also, try to do some research before you go, because we were lucky in the sense of we were thinking of doing the Annapurna circuit. We changed our mind because a friend of ours recommended to us to do this instead. When we were thinking of going, we found a person in Pokhara telling us that there were avalanche and a few people died doing this trek.
Let's go back a step, just to make this clearer.
Okay.
We were in Kathmandu and we were getting ready in preparation to go and do the Annapurna circuit. We had arrived into Nepal at what we believed, based on research, was the end of the monsoon season, when the treks would be safe. And the monsoon season went later than usual this last year. And so when we were actually going to go to do the Annapurna circuit, the weather was causing landslides and avalanches. And so we decided to go to Pokhara, kind of take a little bit of time, let the weather settle down, let the treks kind of be repaired, because we'd heard stories that the path had been destroyed in many places. And yeah, so when we were in Pokhara, we encountered this guy who had been with a group of people.
He was like walking in a stitch,
on crutches,
because his leg was not fine.
He was with 6 people that were killed.
They all died. He was basically the only survivor.
Yeah.
So
the weather is not something to be messing with at all, especially the monsoon season. So be very careful, particularly with trekking companies, because it seems that they're quite eager to start the season as soon as possible. Because of course for them, when the season starts, the money starts. So just be very careful not to be drawn in too early on in the season, where the weather might not have kind of moved on from the monsoon period. You want it to be dry. So just be very mindful of that.
Also, if you get a guide or a porter and you are walking too quickly because they want to reach the summit as soon as possible so they can get another client and carry on making money, if you have any symptoms, any feelings of altitude sickness or anything, make sure that you make it clear, because sometimes they don't listen to you. We have heard cases as well, they don't listen to you and then they carry on, and then you can get sick. So make sure that if you have something, you make your point clear and don't carry on even when your porter or guide wants to carry on.
Yeah, like we met a guy on the trek, and he got a guide because he basically came to Nepal for 10 days and he just needed something organized quick. So we got a guide because it would be easy. Fair enough. This trek does not require a guide. If you want a guide, if you've got the money to pay for one, by all means do. It's a fantastic thing to do, to put money back into the economy, help someone feed their family. But if you're unsure, if you're a couple like us who are perhaps more conscious of their budget, you don't need one. It's really not necessary. But this guy who did have a guide, he was talking to us kind of like candidly, and he said, yeah, look, I paid a lot of money. He paid $1,100 for a 5-day trek, which is wow. So he could afford it, fair enough, that's on him. But he did say that the guide was rushing him, because what we were doing in 1 day, what we were doing in 2 days, the guide was encouraging him to do in 1 day, walking very, very, very fast, not giving him the time to take his photos and things. And maybe you're a super athlete and that's exactly what you want, but for us, we came to enjoy it, to go slow. So just set the rules, set the boundaries with your guide, if you do get one from the beginning, that you want to go at your pace, that you're conscious of the altitude. And on this point, I've just stumbled into it based on research and based on a lot of things that I read. I'll preface this with, I don't want to label everyone with the same name. So I'm saying this loosely and I don't want to generalize, but it does happen. There are stories of guides and trekking companies hurrying clients to higher altitudes so they get sick. There are stories of guides ensuring that trekkers get ill so they can be evacuated by helicopter. And this is because for a small few, again, I don't want to generalize, but it does happen, they are in business with the helicopter evacuation companies. This is the reason why getting travel insurance for Nepal, getting travel insurance for treks is difficult and expensive, because there's been in the past a lot of abuse of insurance claims. So the deal is, you get evacuated from the mountain, helicopter company invoices said insurance company, and they inflate the price. The guide and the trekking company get a kickback, and the helicopter company get their money from the insurance company. So if you see signs of your guide trying to hurry you, you see signs of your guide being very casual with you feeling problems with altitude, just be very cautious. And as I say, I just want to finish that saying, I don't want to label everyone with the same name. It's rare, just does happen, just be mindful of it.
Just be aware of that, and that's it.
Yeah.
Do we finish our questions with...
We can get into the whole budget situation more, into the money thing. How much do specific items cost? I do have all that recorded. I do have a full transcript of all the things we bought each day. So if you'd like that, if you'd like me to answer some questions on that, if you've got any other questions based on what we've spoke about today, or even if you're considering doing a trek yourself, maybe the Mardi Himal one, fire us the questions, message us on Instagram, message us on YouTube. By all means, reach out to us, we're happy to help. But hopefully you gathered something from this, and yeah, now we're going to get back to our enjoyable 16-hour train journey where we've had nobody join us yet. So wishing you all the best, hope you enjoyed the video. Watch our other videos, come along on our adventure, and yeah,
See you in the next one.
see you soon.